All right. Hello, good afternoon, good evening, and good morning, everyone. We have a special guest, and I'm very excited to introduce to you our special guest who is going to tell us about something beautiful and amazing. Let me introduce her. Our guest speaker is married with two kids, a son and a daughter. She is currently living in Chennai, India. She received the Women Economic Forum Award in 2018 and was one of the 200 women named in the EU Wall of Fame in 2016. She does therapy, alternative healing, and energy medicine. Let us welcome our guest speaker, helping us understand mind-body connection, Mrs. Gita Jayakumar.
Thank you so much for having me. It's such a pleasure being with all of you today. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So I was away at a workshop, and when I was free, I saw that there were a number of Skype calls. So when I returned the call, I found that it was from a gentleman who had fractured his hand a month ago, and it was in a cast. So when he went for his checkup, the doctor had him do an MRI scan, and the scan showed that there was no improvement in his hand, his wrist to be precise. It was in the same condition it was a month ago. So the doctor did not have any other option but surgery. And this gentleman was very, very anxious. He wanted to avoid this surgery at any cost. So he wanted me to give him a session. And the surgery was scheduled to take place 3 hours from the time we were speaking. So that gave me only half an hour because my next session at the workshop was to start in half an hour. Anyway, we decided to go in for the session. And 20 minutes into therapy, he was able to write because it was his wrist he had fractured. So 20 minutes into the session, he was able to write, to move his wrist up and down, twist it, bowl, in short, everything which he was normally doing with his wrist. So much so that the doctor was so surprised when he went for his consult. The doctor asked him, was it your twin brother who came in for the MRI yesterday? Now, what I exactly had to work on here to find the root cause, I took it back to the time when he was a very young child. And he was sitting having breakfast at his table when he saw his parents having a huge argument in the kitchen, and the father raised his hands to beat the mother. So this child ran in between the parents to ward off the blow his father was going to give his mom. So once we settled that issue, the body went back to normal. The wrist came back to its old self, that is the healthy wrist. Another case was when I was away at the movies and there was a persistent call from one of my clients. And when I answered that, he asked me to help him find his aunt who was missing since morning. And they had gone around everywhere trying to trace her, but they couldn't. So I helped him out with it. And after some time, he called me up and he said that he had found his aunt, and his aunt was found sitting next to the grave of her mother, weeping her heart out. The next day he called me and he asked me for an appointment for this aunt because she was in a very depressed state and could not be brought to the clinic. So we settled in on an online session. And 1 hour after that session, initially at the beginning of the session, this lady could not speak. She was in tears. And after an hour, she was laughing, she was joking, she was planning her future. And the conflict theme we had to deal with here was that she had no relationship with her husband, mentally, physically, emotionally. And this stemmed from the relationship she saw between her parents ever since she was a kid. Now, the belief she formed was that marriage was just to procreate. And once that was over, you just coexist. And once we shifted that energy, because, in her own words, that is not what she wanted. She wanted an emotional, mental, physical relationship with her husband. And once we shifted that energy and cleared it, her body went back to normal. It's 6 years since she had therapy with me. She is a very successful businesswoman today. So in both of these situations, you see that I have spoken not about medicine or any form of intervention, but some finding the root cause. So I'm Gita Jayakumar. I'm a mind-body specialist who works on the premise that whatever happens in your life is because of a past happening. So we get to the root cause of this, and once we release the energy around it, the body is restored to normalcy. It all started for me when I was in my teens, when I had joined yoga class, and I really enjoyed it. But after a few sessions, when we went into the more advanced poses, I saw myself going deeper and deeper into depression. And as any mother would do it, my mom did the most logical thing she thought was right and told me to stop doing yoga, which I did. And after a few years, I went back to learn another form of yoga. And as I was practicing that, flashes of memory came where I was being abused by my father when I was a toddler. So again, I shelved yoga because I thought yoga is not for me. It's bringing up bad memories. And I got married, and once the children went into school, I went into Reiki, became a grandmaster. And somewhere I was not fulfilled. Something in me remained empty. There was a quest. I didn't know what. So I jumped therapy to therapy. And before long, I found that I had about 40 to 45 therapies in my kitty. And it so happened that one of my neighbors, their child passed away under very tragic circumstances. And I had gone to the funeral. And when I came back, I went into a very depressive state. And I tried each of the 40 modalities. I knew I worked with my mentors, I worked with swap partners, but nothing worked really. So I decided to go to my spiritual guru. And that day, my spiritual guru humiliated me before a huge crowd. And something snapped within me. I said, I'm not going to listen to anybody, because the foolishness of it struck me only then. This is my body, and I am my only resource. Here I am asking a third person to find out what was happening within me, and I will be the best person to know what is happening within me. So I came back home, and I was in an empowered state, but at the same time, I went back to square one. The depression was still there. I did not know how to tackle it. So I went online and did a lot of research, did a few courses, and came to this mind-body connection. And that is where this is what has helped me with a lot of my clients, the first two case studies, which I told you. This has been a stepping stone and has given me a lot of aha moments. So coming back to this talk, what is a symptom? A symptom occurs when your body is not in alignment with what is happening in your environment. Now, just say I come from a very, very hot place. And if I were to travel to a very cold place, and if I were to continue wearing these clothes, definitely my body is going to react because there is disharmony there. So in a similar way, when your body is not in tandem to what is happening in your surrounding, a symptom occurs. Now, does a symptom occur arbitrarily? No, it doesn't. It needs a trauma for a symptom to show up. What is a trauma? A trauma is a situation which occurs when something happens which is unexpected, it is dramatic, it is isolating, where you have no strategy to deal with it. And when a trauma occurs, your body goes into stress. And when you're in stress, what happens? Your BP increases, you don't eat well, you don't sleep well, you lose weight, your extremities are cold, and there are many other symptoms. Now, there are certain symptoms which show up during the stress phase. I'm not going to discuss that. Now, just imagine that you're in stress and in some way you resolve your stress, okay? Now, in this stage, your body goes into repair, or we call it regeneration. That means your body is healing. And here some symptoms shows up, and which the majority of us have is pain. So the pain really starts when your body is going into regeneration, when it is in repair. But what do we think? We think that the body is doing something wrong and pop pills. I'm not saying popping pills is wrong. We have to. But if you do it with the knowledge as to why that stress phase occurred, what the trauma was, then the dependency on the drugs or will get reduced. Maybe, if you are taking 10, you would make do with one or two. And what happens when there is pain? There is always inflammation occurring, right, along with the pain. So what is inflammation? Whenever you have resolved and the body, a particular organ, and that starts paining, like your elbow or your knee, then water will rush to that particular organ to aid the healing. And that is where inflammation occurs. But we think otherwise. Actually, your body is in healing mode. Now, what exactly happens during trauma? Now, during trauma, the heart picks up that particular incident. And it's said that the heart picks it up many seconds before it actually occurs. Once the heart picks up this energy, it is sent to the brain. The brain then decides which organ is the most suited at that moment, and this energy will remain trapped in that particular organ. So that is why you see a particular organ is affected. Now, the brain has 4 layers. Okay, so the first layer is the brain stem. Second layer is the medulla. Third is cerebellum. And second is the cerebellum, third is the medulla, and fourth is the cortex. Now, I'll go a little into detail. Now, I told you that trauma is picked up by the heart and sent to the brain. Now, in the brain, it could land in one of these 4 layers. Now, it depends on how you perceive the trauma as. Supposing you think that the trauma is something to do with survival, not being able to digest that issue, then it goes to the brain stem. That is where your digestive organs will get affected. Supposing you think at that particular moment it is perceived this trauma is something to do with protection, something to do with integrity, then it goes to the second brain layer, which is called the cerebellum. If the individual perceives that this trauma is to do with my self-worth, my identity, then it goes into the medulla. Or if it is a territorial issue or something to do with boundaries, then it goes into the cortex. So I will give you an example. Just imagine that a man is working in an office and he is very, very good at his job. Does everything perfectly, deadlines are met, he is perfect, but the boss is never happy. He is always shouting at him, insulting him, humiliating him. And he's put up with it for quite some time. And then he decides, I can't take it any longer. I'm going to put in my papers. And that's what he does. And he comes back home very happy that from the next day, he's not going back to the office and no more listening to the boss's shouts. And he plays with his children, has a nice chat with his wife. And then he sits for dinner. He looks at his food and suddenly it is, where am I going to get the food from next month? There's nothing. I have no earnings. So that is when the digestive organs will be affected. Now, the same person can perceive it differently if he thinks, the world is such a bad place. How am I going to protect my children? I mean, even if you're good, you're not honored. So how am I going to protect the kids from being hurt this way? Then it goes into the cerebellum. The third is that if he perceives it this way, where, he thinks that everyone in my family is doing so well, and I'm the only one without a job now. I'm a good for nothing. I'm fit for nothing. My self-worth is at an all-time low. It goes into the third layer, which is the medulla, where the bones, the muscles, the ligaments could be affected. The fourth layer, cortex, example is, just imagine that he was not married and he had a girlfriend. And he quit the job which she did not like. And she was shouting at him, and they were separated. So that separation could affect the fourth layer, which is called the cortex. And that could be something to do with the epidermis, that is where you have eczema and other issues. So with this, you see that everything has a root cause. Your body is very intelligent and it does not make a mistake. So if you could trace any symptom to the trauma and just release the energy around it, then your body will come back to normal. Everything is in your hands. Look within yourself and not outside. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much.
I hope that was okay.
Yes. Okay. So while I'm listening, I like to ask something.
Yes, please.
This trauma is actually, I mean, it's realistic. It can happen to anybody. But the food, how
For
about the food?
example, even this coronavirus is a trauma for all of us.
Yes.
It has struck very suddenly, right? And it is a trauma.
Okay, there. Yeah, this.
I lost.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, I lost you, so I said something because it was too silent. Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, this corona COVID-19, it really affects a lot.
Yeah.
It brings
Yeah.
anxiety, worries, and those things. So how, like for example, our body, how are we going to cope it? This kind of situation, like it's sudden, especially with different news in the television, in Facebook, and then when you are checking on it, you will feel worry. So how are we?
Yeah, you will see. The first thing we have to do is to accept it. Okay. And we have not accepted it, we are fighting it. And what happens when you fight it, whatever you resist persists, right? So the first thing is to just accept, yes, this virus is there. And once you do that, then it sort of scales down the intensity, and then address your fear. And okay, one thing is, two ways of looking at it. If you are a person with a lot of social connections, you love partying, then it's going to affect you a lot. But at the same time, it is very good that we are all isolated with our families. Okay. So we have time to really sit and spend time with each other and, reconnect. Because whatever is said and done, we have been in a real busy mode all these years. Mm-hmm. Even when you go on a holiday, it's not the same because with the phone, with the laptop, you're still working. But it's like as if the earth is slowing down and telling each one that this is not the only purpose in life. There is something else. So, it is giving you time to reconnect with your family, because social connection connection is not only with your friends and your co-workers or your colleagues, but connection with the family is important. So if you could set your phone aside for some time and really reconnect and get back to those old days when you could play with them, you could
Yeah.
talk with them, and reconnect, rebond. And also another thing is that, it's sort of, you could really look into yourself, which we have never ever done. It has been such a mechanical
It's
life.
everything.
So if
Everything.
you could take the time out, stop that dependency on social media, maybe a
Yeah.
couple of times a day, just to keep abreast of what's happening, that should suffice. Because the more we look into it, however much we heal, there is something which would spark that fear, that uncertainty as to what is happening. It happens to the best of the people around.
Mm-hmm.
So, to remain calm, the best thing is to stay away from social media and from television. Reconnect to yourself, because nothing is going to harm you as far as this virus is concerned. We are lucky that it is not airborne.
Oh yeah.
So
That's
we are
nice.
all indoors, we are safe. So if we could keep reassuring and reaffirming this, the 2 weeks will go away very fast.
I agree.
And there's no dearth of courses or whatever you want online. So it's not that you really need to get out, unless you miss your parties, right? But that's something. It's okay. 2 weeks you can chill. Give
Yeah.
that a break.
Hopefully it's 2 weeks, but here they announced it's 1 month lockdown. Imagine.
No, I don't think so, because since it's a lockdown, maybe the other 2 weeks the third and fourth week will not be so bad, because the
Mhm.
virus will come down by then. Have you all entered stage 3?
Um, as I heard from the news, I think it's in level 2, but I haven't heard yet the news if it's already in 3.
No, no, no. That's why they would have locked down. So, that's very, very safe if you're in level 2, because India's also locked down at level 2.
Yeah.
So if they could contain it now, then it'll be pretty much stable in 2 weeks. But I
Yeah,
guess it's better they do it for another 2 weeks so that the virus dies down completely.
hopefully. Another question, ma'am, is like because, for example, there's if you depress and then you feel trauma, it really affects your body, right? So what are the things, like, if is it okay to actually have a good diet so that your physical will be able to recover physically? And then how about emotionally? How are you going to cope up with those kind of experience? Because sometimes when you feel trauma, you don't feel like talking to other people, you don't feel like going out, you just want to stay at home, or even don't feel like eating, you just
Exactly.
want to
That's a
sleep.
symptom. Yes. Okay. So as I told you, anything and everything which happens again is to first accept it.
Mm-hmm.
Because when there is a trauma, now again, when I have to mention this, when I say trauma, what is trauma for me may not be trauma for you.
Yeah, possible.
you know like for me, if somebody raises their eyebrow, I might feel like, no, and that is because I think she's going to slap me or hit me. Whereas to another person it is, God, she's so silly, why is she shrinking away, why is she scared?
Mm-hmm.
It could be fun, but to another person. So what's trauma to one is not trauma to another. And as I mentioned before, the first thing in any healing is to accept and acknowledge that this has happened. Yes, I accept it. Don't fight it.
Mm-hmm.
Once you accept it, your body will actually, there's a relief. That trauma would come down. And once you accept it, you allow yourself to feel what you're feeling completely. We don't do that, like if it is fear, we don't allow ourselves to feel fear, but we are trying to find ways of getting over the fear.
Mhm.
So don't go to the next step, but allow yourself to feel that fear completely. And then you will see.
Question. I so love question.
Sure.
So, as a mother, and as you really gain a lot of wisdom, and you said that one thing that we need to do, like if we experience trauma, is acceptance. Now, as a mother, and for us mother who is going to face more of this kind of situation, like different kinds of challenges in our life, how can you any suggestion for a woman like me, like for me, I like me, and to mothers who are actually looking and taking care of their kids or their family, how can we be more braver and stronger and be wiser in um what do you call this, in facing these different challenges in life?
Well, this has a longer answer. Now, when you are faced with a challenge and you think it is a challenge, then it is your belief system. Okay? Like, I cannot face this. This is too much for me. Just say, if that is what you feel when a particular incident happens, then this belief has come into play sometime when you were younger. Okay? And believe me when I tell you this, that whatever is happening in your life is a pattern. You would have noticed this. Your mother would have gone through the same thing. You will also be going through the same thing. It's just coming in different forms. Okay? So, whatever you are going through now is because of what has happened in your life between 0 to 6 or 7 years of age. Okay? And that is where all your beliefs have formed. So, supposing, like, I will give you an example where there was this person who was very, very scared of all of these illnesses. There was the swine flu and SARS and now the COVID. So, on working, it was traced back to when this person was very young, when the school teacher told her that, it was a part of her studies where, this teacher said it was something to do with plague and, the infectious diseases. And the teacher said, no going to airports or railway stations. And if you were to go there, don't go near the beggars or don't go near anybody in shawls because you will get leprosy and you will die. Your body parts will start falling and you will die. So each time there was a spark of some infectious disease like SARS or the swine flu which came up, this lady would literally go into panic mode. So once that was released, we traced it back, got the root cause, and once that was released, now she's in a really cool position.
Mhm. Mm, okay. So,
So whatever you have going through, there is a belief attached to it. There is an emotion attached to it. We have to find out what it is. We have to trace it back to its origin and release it. But to be better equipped with whatever we have now, it is follow the principle I said. Accept, don't fight.
mhm.
Every situation, it's not, I can't just tell you that, okay, you heal this, you're set for life. It's not like that. Life is always throwing something or the other at us. Every day there is some obstacle, there is may not be a big T trauma, it could be a very small trauma we are going through. We have to face it, so don't fight it, accept it, and allow yourself to feel what you have to feel at that moment. Don't try to subdue it and push it into yourself. Once you bottle it, that's where it becomes a problem.
Mhm. All right. Thank you so much.
You
I really, really, really learn a lot. That's a good realization, accepting and don't fight it. Because sometimes we fight. I usually fight. Why is it happening? Why is it like this? No. Okay. So thank you so much, Jita. It's very, very helpful. Um, I do understand, and now I know that I should not be fighting back, or I should accept. Thank you so much for the
thank you so much.
opportunity, for the wisdom that you have given us.
My
We
pleasure.
are very thankful, yes. Um, and for those who are watching us right now, I hope that you learn. And if you have questions, send to us so that I will send it to Jetta, and then she will answer you back. I hope that you have learned a lot with this acceptance and don't fight back, because it really helps us. And I know that there's a lot of things that we need to learn from from Jetta, and we know that there is something to do. And thank you so much, because
Thank
you have stayed with us, and we hope that that you will allow us to invite you again for another webinar, and that you can share to us a new topic that we can learn from you.
Definitely, my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Okay, so thank you so much, and we hope that you will we hope that you are going to watch our upcoming webinars, and thank you so much. And we invite you to join World Pulse Philippines with our Facebook group, and also our World Pulse PH group support group for mommy who are taking care of kids with special needs. And also you can share your story on worldpulse.com. All right.
Yes.
Thank you so
Thank you so
much.
much. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.